I'm young, I'm handsome, I'm fast, I'm pretty, and can't possibly be beat. I'm a poet, I'm a prophet, I'm the resurrector, I'm the savior of the boxing world. I am the greatest.
You know, there have been many throughout history that have claimed to be amazing in some way or another. And just like Muhammad Ali said, "I am the greatest," many others have boasted about themselves, saying, "I am the smartest," or "I am the most powerful." But before any of these people had a claim to greatness, before any of them had a chance to boast about who they were or what they had done, there was the one person who simply said, "I am." His statements of "I am," his statements of who he was, were like no other. They pointed to himself, describing his very character and essence, and he is Jesus. He is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the bread of life. He is the true vine. He is the light of the world. He is the good shepherd. He is the watcher of the sheep, and he is the resurrection and the life. He is the I am.
Doors. Something that we really don't think much about, but we actually use quite often. Odds are you have probably already used a doorway today. Unless you have just woken up and you're watching this message from your bed. Props to you for doing that. Or if you're locked in solitary confinement, probably haven't used a door today. Which I'm assuming you probably wouldn't have access to this message either. So I'll say it again, props to you for not being in solitary confinement today. All right, good morning to you. But we use doors all the time. We have doors on our houses. We have doors in our, inside our houses, separating the rooms within our houses. We have doors on our cars. We have doors on our restaurants, doors on our places of employment, doors on our schools. If you think about it, you pass through many doors every single day of your life. If you've ever done a study on the Bible's use of the word door, you'd find that the concept is actually found about 400 times in Scripture. Oftentimes, it's a metaphor for different opportunities in life. The Bible has a lot to say about doors, both literally and figuratively. The truth is that you might not even realize all the doors you have before you right now. There are doors of opportunity. Doors can be entrances and exits. They can be a bridge to something great, or it could be a barrier even for you. They can represent acceptance or rejection. Doors open and shut. They have an inside and an outside. They provide access and or denial or give freedom or captivity. In the Bible, doors are metaphors for the choices that we make every day. We discover early on in life that we can walk through some doors and not others. But here's the thing. We need to make a decision each time we see a door. In John chapter number 10, in verse number 7, we see this third I am statement of Jesus. And by now you might know what that statement is. It's the statement where Jesus says, "I am the door." Look at the verse with me here today real quick. John chapter number 10 and verse number 7. This is what it says. "So Jesus again said to them, 'Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep.'" Now, Jesus' statement, "I am the door of the sheep," it's a reference to old Eastern customs of towns that they would gather scattered flocks of sheep into one common pen, one common sheepfold, if you will. Shepherds back in biblical times, they either would take turns to guard the sheep, or they were designated as gatekeepers of the sheep. This simply means that they stayed with the sheep throughout the night. They worked the third shift, if you will, protecting the fold from any predators or robbers, anybody that would come in and threaten the sheep. A gatekeeper served as a type of a doorway to the sheep. Often spending the night, the shepherd would lay prone across the entrance of the sheepfold. He was the door of the sheepfold, if you will. For those of us who lack familiarity with sheep herding, Jesus' comment and illustration, it might sound a bit strange, to be honest. Shepherds have to lead their sheep because sheep do not have this internal homing instinct that other animals possess, one that would help the sheep navigate back to their original home. At nighttime in the countryside, a shepherd would need to lead his sheep to a pre-built shelter or make a sheepfold. This is the idea to corral the sheep as they slept. The sheepfold would have been, pretty simple in design. It probably would have been the shape of a circle. It would have been made with some kind of small rock or maybe some sticks and thorns, some kind of, basically gate, if you will, that would protect and keep predators from being able to get in. And it would have a small opening where the sheep would enter into it. The shepherd would then lead his sheep into the pen at night. And since there was no gate to the sheepfold, the shepherd himself would lie in that opening, thus acting as the gate or the door. In the context of John chapter 9 and 10, Jesus, he contrasts himself with the Pharisees and the religious rulers of the day. He said bad shepherds and false leaders, they understood the reference pointed towards them. They would get it, what Jesus was talking about here. But their real outrage came in Jesus' claim to being the promised shepherd Messiah. Now, I'll throw this out here right now. Next week, we're going to look at Jesus as the good shepherd. All right? These religious rulers, steeped in the law of Moses, they listened to Jesus speak and they understood the significance of his words. So obviously this made them even more upset at Jesus and who he was claiming to be with these I am statements. In John chapter number 10, in verses 3 and 4, we see a powerful relationship that exists between sheep and their shepherd. Would you look at me with those verses here real quick today? It says, to him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. This passage here is telling us that a shepherd, he speaks to his sheep. He calls them by name, and he goes before them, and he leads the sheep where they need to go. And the sheep follow because they know his voice. In the same way, the relationship between Jesus and his followers is dynamic. Jesus speaks to us, he calls us by name, and he leads us. And like the sheep to their shepherd, we are to listen to Jesus' voice and follow him. So, I am the door. This third of the 7 recorded I am statements, these declarations that Jesus made here in the book of John. This is the third one. And through this statement, Jesus claimed divinity in himself as the passageway, or if you will, the door to heaven. Today, what I want to do, I just want to share with you 3 simple truths about this statement that Jesus said, I am the door. Three simple statements here, but they're very, very vital to us. Number one is this, that Christ is the door. He's the door. He said there in verse number 7, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. Look, a door we mentioned earlier, right? A door is for exiting and entering, right? When you go through a door, you are exiting one place and entering into another one, right? That's what happens. It's that simple. So let me share with you a few places that Jesus, as the door, leads you to, okay? Number one, I want you to understand, he is the door to forgiveness. He's the door to forgiveness. The Bible tells us that those who trust him, they exit condemnation. John chapter 3, verse 17 says, for God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. Those who trust him, they enter justification. Romans chapter 5, verse 1, it says, therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. That's what he is the door to forgiveness. If you need forgiveness in your lives, and listen, I'll give you the hint, all of us need forgiveness in our lives for the sins, for the trespasses that we have committed. Every single one of us need that forgiveness. And the only way that we can exit the condemnation and enter into the forgiveness and the peace that in the justification that Jesus offers is by going through the door, going through Jesus Christ. He's the door of forgiveness. Number two, I want you to understand that he is the door to life. You see, those who trust him, they exit spiritual death. Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 1, it says that you were dead in the trespasses in sin. But those who trust him, they enter a new life. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17, it says, therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he's a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. That passage in Ephesians chapter 2 will go on to say that we were made alive because of Christ. He is the door to life. The truth is that without Jesus Christ, if you have never walked through the door of Jesus Christ, you've never walked through the door of forgiveness, then you don't have life. The Bible says that you are dead in your sins. And Jesus provides life. And he's the door to heaven. He's the door to heaven. You see, those who trust in him, they exit the road to hell. John chapter 3, verse 36, it says, whoever believes in the Son has eternal life. Whoever does not obey the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God remains on him. However, those who trust him, they enter into eternal life. John chapter 5, verse 24, it says, truly, truly, I say to you, whoever hears my word and believes him who sent me has eternal life. He does not come into judgment, but has passed from death, watch this, to life. You see, Jesus, he's the door. Jesus is the door. He's the door to forgiveness. He's the door to life. He's the door to heaven. Jesus is the door, but there is something that you really have to know, you really have to understand about this door is number two, is that Christ is the only door. He's the only door. Verse number 8 of our text here in John chapter 10, it says, all who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. Notice, Jesus didn't refer to himself as a door of the sheep. Just like last week when we talked about at Expo, we said that Jesus was not a light of the world. He was the light of the world. Notice here, Jesus doesn't say that he is a door for the sheep, but he says he was the door for the sheep. Jesus is the only door by which we can enter into heaven. There's no other door to forgiveness. There's no other door to a new life. There is no other door to heaven. There is no other door to eternal life. There's nothing else. And so many people in our world, they are trying to find other doors. They're trying to find other ways, other avenues of getting to heaven and getting eternal life and finding peace and finding forgiveness. They're trying every other door in the world. But listen, it's not going to work. Those religious doors that you're trying to use to get into heaven, those religious doors of being baptized. Listen, that's not going to get you to heaven. The religious doors of communion is not going to get you to heaven. The religious doors of church attendance is not going to get you to heaven. The financial doors of giving to a church is not going to get you to heaven. Giving to charities all your life is not going to get you to heaven. The doors of personal merit are not going to get you to heaven. You can't use good works. It's not going to work. Honesty, integrity, character, all of those things, it's not going to work. All the cultic doors, if you will, all of the false Christs and false doctrines out there, those are not going to get you into heaven, because Jesus is the only door. So everything else in this world, apart from Jesus Christ, it's going to fail. It's not going to work. It's going to be like being in one of those like fun house mazes, and you're opening doors, but they're leading to nowhere. Everything else fails because Jesus Christ is the only door. Acts chapter 4, verse number 12, it says, "And there is salvation in no one else. For there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved." Jesus is the only door. Now, a lot of people, they struggle with this concept. They call it narrow-minded. They say that Christianity stuff's narrow-minded. They're too narrow-minded for me. But listen, in all reality, it's exactly what it is. It's narrow-minded. Matthew chapter 7, verse 13, it says this: "Enter by the narrow gate. For the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many." Verse 14 says, "For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few." So yeah, listen, you can say Christianity is narrow-minded. But hear me out for a moment here real quick, okay? This week I was watching a television show where these people, they were trying to win the keys to a famous chef's new restaurant. In the beginning of the show, they were teaching all of these contestants how the restaurant works, how they make their food and do all this stuff. It was like they had chicken was like what they were known for, and so they had these very meticulous ways of preparing and seasoning their food. It was very particular, and they told them there's only one way to do it. It doesn't matter how many times you prepared food like this or done it on your own. This is the only way that we do it. If the contestants veered from the recipes or the procedures at all, they were scolded by the chef because they weren't doing it his way. And I watched this show, and I was amazed at how detailed everything was. I mean, there was a specific way to do everything. And it didn't matter if these people had cooked food in a different way before. There was only one way for them to cook it in this famous restaurant. And I got to thinking, why is it that we would watch something like this? Or maybe you've seen some other similar process with some high-end brand of some sort. We look at them and we're amazed and we applaud the detail and the strategic process to make the best quality product. We'll celebrate that. But yet we get mad at Christianity for saying that there is only one way to get to heaven. You can't be upset with one but okay with the other. All roads do not lead to heaven. And it's because heaven is a superior product. Jesus is the only door to heaven. Now here's the really good news though. Yes, Jesus, he is the only door. That is true. But listen, number 3, Christ is the door for everyone. He's the door for everyone. Look at what it said there in verses 9 and then verse number 10. It says, "I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." Listen, this is not like a staff only type of a door. You know, like, have you ever been somewhere and like, you know, you see a door and it says staff only, and like you're not allowed to go past this door, you know, maybe it's at a restaurant or something, you know, in there, or maybe you're at Disney and, you know, there's certain doors you're just not allowed to go in, right? You're restricted access from those things. In that, listen, that's not what Jesus is. He's not one of those staff only, you're restricted if you don't meet these requirements type of a thing. The gospel says that if any man enter in, this invitation is open to all. It's open to everybody. This statement is another way to say the whoever that we read about in John chapter 3 and verse 16, where for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Or it's, you know, when Romans chapter 10 and verse 13, when it says everyone, this is the same invitation. For everyone, verse 13 says, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. This door opens for everybody who wishes to enter into it. It's open for everybody. It's open for all sinners. It doesn't matter how dark your past might be. It doesn't matter how dark your present is right now and what you have been doing in your life. It doesn't matter. Romans chapter 3 verse 23 says, for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. But Romans chapter 5 verse number 8, it says, but God shows his love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. It's open for all sinners. Doesn't matter where you're at today. Doesn't matter what kind of sins you committed this morning or last night or the day before that or what you've been doing for the past 5-10 years of your life. That doesn't matter. This door is open for everybody. It's open for all sinners. It's open for everybody who will come to Jesus. John chapter 6 verse 37. It says, for all that the Father gives me will come to me. And whoever comes to me, I will never cast out. It's for all of us. It's for all races. This is you know, the inclusivity that our world is searching for today. It is found in the gospel. It is found in Jesus Christ, because the gospel is open for everybody. In Romans chapter 10 and verse number 12, it says, for there is no distinction between the Jew and the Greek, for the same Lord is Lord of all, bestowing his riches on all who call upon him. It's for everybody. Those who enter this door, they find salvation. That's why it says that they shall be saved. They will be saved. There's no doubt about it. There's no questioning it. Those who enter this door, they're part of the sheepfold now. And the shepherd's going to protect you. The shepherd's going to take care of you. The shepherd's going to provide for you. Those who enter this door, you're going to find satisfaction in life. You're going to find what you're looking for. You're going to find pasture, if you will. Those who enter this door, they're going to live life abundant. That's what he said there in verse number 10. He said the thief comes to steal and to kill and destroy. That's what the threat was to the sheep. That's why the shepherd would lay in front of the sheep. He would put them in this pen to protect them from the evil, from those who wanted to destroy them. The shepherd would put them in there and protect them, watch over them. And that's what Jesus is doing. He says the thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy, but I came that they may have life and have life abundant. That's the life that Jesus wants you to see today. That's what he wants you to experience today. When I was a student pastor in Indiana, every year we would take our students to an event called Winter Jam. Winter Jam was just a big, huge Christian concert. They would have 7 or 8, maybe even like more, like 10 bands, something like that, there, and they would usually have somebody share the gospel in the middle of the event as well. They only charged $10 at the door, so they tried to make it super cheap so that people could get in and have this great experience and all that. And so that's $10. If you bought a concert ticket, you know how good of a deal that is, right? But to offset that cheap entry fee, they would always take up an offering during the show, and so they would have some of the student ministry pastors or leaders or whatever, in various sections of the arena, they would have them be the ushers to take up the offering. So my buddy Mitch and I, we always volunteered to take up the offering. And not because we're like great servants and we just love to serve or anything like that, but we use this opportunity to get behind the closed doors in the arena. I know, it's terrible, right? We would take up the offering. We would then, go to drop off the buckets, to take them down to the people, that needed to count the offering and all that type of stuff. So we would take up the offering. We'd go to drop off the buckets, but then we would just conveniently, we would get lost in the process. And so we would start, just wandering around until we found ourselves backstage with the other artists and bands and all those types of things. And man, we got to see some cool people and things like that. Jeremy Camp. We saw Sadie Robertson one year when she was at these concerts, and we would just see all kinds of awesome people in there. And so we used the buckets as a way to get through the doors that would normally be blocked from us and from being allowed to enter. And what would always happen is that once they found out that we were not part of the crew or part of any of the bands, they would tell us to leave and go back to our seats, because not everyone was allowed through those doors. But you see, this is the beautiful thing about Jesus being the door. We don't need some kind of gimmick or some kind of trick to get through his door. We can confidently walk up to the door of Jesus Christ, and we can ask permission to enter into the glories of heaven, and he will never deny us access. He will never kick us out. In fact, Scripture tells us that Jesus is actually standing at the door knocking, waiting for us to open the door and let him in. Romans chapter 3, verse 20, it says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me." You see, it's not just enough to know about the door. You actually have to go through it to truly experience it. We talk about life and getting out into the world, getting out into life. Listen, I know my front door. I know when I open my front door, it's going to open me up to the world in front of me, and to all the glory and the splendor that the world has to offer me and all the opportunities. I know that. But unless I physically make the choice to go through the door, to step out of my front door into the world, I never actually get to experience what's out there. And the same is true with Jesus. You can never truly experience the glories of this life abundant that Jesus is offering unless you actually walk through the door. And Jesus said, "I am the door." My prayer is that you'll walk through that door today and put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior.
Thank you so much for visiting Exponential Church today. We're so happy that you chose to worship with us today. Our service is just about over, but we have a few things that we want you to be aware of before you go. If this is your first time here, or maybe just the first time in a long time, would you fill out one of our visitor cards so we have a record of your attendance? You can find the cards on the table next to the door where you came in. Just fill it out and drop it in the orange X box before you leave. We would love for you to get involved with Expo by being a part of our dream team. We have all kinds of ways you can serve here at Expo, but specifically right now we are looking for people who are interested in volunteering with our X-Kids ministry, as well as someone who would be interested in helping with our tech and media ministry each Sunday. If you want to know more about how you can get involved, please see Amanda or Pastor Steve. Expo has a Bible study group on Wednesday nights at 6:30 at the home of David and Debbie Llewellyn's house. This is a great opportunity to grow in your knowledge of the Bible and also sweet time of fellowship. Their address is 3542 Southwest Zulo Street here in PSL. If you'd like to partner with us financially, we have several ways you can give. You can put your offering in the X box as you leave today, or if you want to give electronically, you can text the dollar amount to the number 84321. Or you can go to our website, expochurch.com, find our giving tab, and follow the instructions there. As always, we want to say thank you for your investments in this ministry. Again, thank you for coming to Exponential Church today. We're looking forward to seeing you again next week, but until then, have a blessed week.